Welcome, Ben Fein, to I.C.U. Live. For the people who don't know who you are, you want to just give a quick overview, your background, your come up story, and then we can just dive into the conversation from there.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. I was thinking about it, Ty. I was thinking about, introducing myself, and we've known each other for over a decade now, which I think ages us a little bit, makes me feel a
Yeah.
little old. Ty and I, for everyone watching who doesn't know, we met in high school in Prosper. We both did the journalism program, which was a blast, a ton of fun. Loved doing that throughout high school. But anyways, I kind of continued that. I went to college to study journalism, and I was a reporter and anchor for the ABC affiliate in Missouri. I did that for about 5 years. Enjoyed it. The 1 a.m. wake up calls were getting a little old for me, so I made the transition to the corporate world. I do marketing now, work with video game companies. It's a ton of fun, but I've always been very into talking to people. That's one of the reasons I got into journalism. I was like, hey, if I can do this for a living and make money talking to people, that seems like a great idea. But and I've discussed this with Ty, I like talking religion and politics and having those deeper kind of conversations that some people shy away from. Um, and kind of to preface this, I'm very left-leaning. I don't want to put myself into a box, but you'd probably describe me as a socialist if I fit into anything. I'm agnostic. I grew up not very religious, still not very religious, but I've got friends that are very religious, friends who vote for Donald Trump. So I've always gotten along well with everybody, and I like talking about these things and kind of finding out why people think the way that they think. And like I was discussing with Ty, the thing that I find is when I have these conversations, we're a lot closer, a lot more closely aligned than people would want us to think. So it's usually a positive having those tough conversations. But kind of got into it there a little bit. But yes, former journalist, known Ty since high school, very into religion and politics, and yeah, ready for this conversation.
Awesome. Yeah, well, that's cool to hear kind of your background and everything. For everyone who doesn't know, Ty is my nickname from high school.
Yes.
I should.
Yeah, apologies. Should I be calling you Ty? Should
No,
I
you're
call you
good. I
Miles?
don't want to
Okay.
trip you up. You having to focus on saying a name that you're not used to saying. Don't even worry about it. Like that. Let me just get it out of the way so everyone knows. Ty was my
Yeah, yeah,
nickname
yeah.
in high school. So you refer to me to whatever is easiest just to keep the conversation flowing. But I guess I'll let you kind of introduce yourself as well, since
Dude.
nobody knows who you are either. Since it's my channel, I guess.
Ben, I'm Austin, and
Yeah.
everyone else. I don't have as much as an introduction as you. I view myself as a pretty plain Jane guy, like born and raised in El Paso. Um, I didn't have any direction in life really, so like I didn't know what was coming up. Thought I wanted to be a cop at one point, did a police academy, graduated from there, and I was like, this ain't it. So left that. Um, Eventually met a girl and I was like, I gotta settle down and figure out my life. So I got into construction. I thought trades was the route, which it was. I'm still in it. Um, that girl did turn into my wife, then became an ex-wife, got divorced, moved out here where I met Miles. I didn't meet him as Ty, I met him as Miles, so I always call him Miles.
Yeah.
And so yeah, now um living out here, still working in construction. I was an atheist for a large part of my life, met Jesus at 30, and now I've been on this journey. And I actually met Miles before I started going to church, but the night I met him, the next day I met him at church,
Yeah.
like by chance.
Yeah.
Like it was crazy. So
That's crazy.
it is, it's kind of wild, but yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
And how old, you said what you found Jesus when you were 30. How old are you now? Just to
I'll
get a
be 33 in July.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Nice. Nice. We're all around the same. I just turned 29.
Yeah.
Miles baby here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm 27. I'll be 28 in September, so
Yeah, same
yeah.
ballpark.
Catching
Exactly.
us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm doing what I can. Not 30
But yeah,
yet.
no, I'll leave it to you though, Ty, Miles. I'm down to talk about whatever, but you know, you're the host. This is your show.
Yeah,
Wherever you want, wherever you want to start. If there's a jumping point, if there's
yeah,
something you wanted to ask me, the
absolutely.
reins are yours.
Cool. Yeah, I think the first thing, the whole point of me wanting to even get on here with you is like you said in your introduction, I love getting to learn how people think, how people get from point A to point B. I think I mentioned this to you in a previous conversation, but I view kind of worldviews a lot like in mathematics. So if there's an equation and an answer, we all show our work differently to get to that answer. Some people have different answers, and some people claim there's only one answer. We'd be in that ballpark. And then a lot of the things, a lot of, like you said, people would be surprised at how much we have similarities because a lot of the ways or methods in which we get to show our work are similar, and we have similar goals. So I think the main thing I wanted to start with and just to kind of get uh, some grounding going would just be kind of your life philosophy. I know we kind of um, talked about that in a previous conversation, but I just kind of want to hear it from you. What is it you base uh, your objective, I guess, philosophy or morality on? And what do you feel the way in which you view the world best supports that philosophy?
Yeah, no, I mean I think that's obviously everyone's going to have complex answers to that, right? Because especially for me, somebody that doesn't follow a book, right? The
Exactly.
Christian, you know, Jewish, like there's not one place that I can say, "Oh, my morals come from this spot."
Exactly.
Um, but I think like one of the similarities that we'll find in how I can relate this is like I don't think, and this is an opinion, I don't think Christians truly get all of their morals from one spot either. I think there's a lot of great and super helpful lessons in the Bible, but I think like the Bible also, you know, there's some bad stuff in it, right? So like if you guys followed the Bible from by the letter of the law, you know what I mean? And Old Testament stuff. That wouldn't probably look like what you guys are doing right now. And so you guys kind of you use the world to kind of define your morals. Obviously, there's some starting places. For me, it's empathy. Like I want the best outcomes for the most people, and that's kind of where most of my opinions come from. But it's ever changing, right? They're not set in stone. Like if I say you know, oh, I believe this absolutely. Uh, to me, that's kind of doing a disservice to myself. I mean, I'm always open to like that's I'm progressive, right? I'm left leaning. I'm open to any religion. So really, it's a constant battle of just, you know, using my friends, my family, the people around me, my empathy, and reaching to multiple places to kind of dictate and find what I should live my life off of. And the way I kind of relate it back to religion, because I wouldn't really consider myself atheist, I would say agnostic, because in my view, atheists know that there's no afterlife, right? That's what they believe. They're like, it's a fact, this doesn't happen. For me, all I say is, I don't know. You know, I think that, you know, maybe there is a God and maybe the Christians are right, maybe you know, the Jews are right, Muslims, etc. And my thought, what I think, is that if there is an afterlife and if there is a God that exists, that if I'm a good person, I have empathy, I don't cheat, I don't steal, I don't kill, then I would hope that that deity would let me into whatever afterlife there is. And that if me being a good person and living off of my morals and values doesn't get me into said afterlife, then that probably wouldn't have been a deity that I would have wanted to worship in the first place. If that, I know that's kind of an all-encompassing answer, but if that makes sense.
No, I definitely see where you're coming from in that. Is there anything you want to say about that initially? I got a couple things I could dive into
I
there.
know there's so much. Go for it. You go first.
Well, I just first thing I notice is just kind of the first difference I'll point out in kind of your philosophy and mine, is that you said being a good person is the way, I guess, however, I don't remember exactly how you phrased it, but the deity would let you in for being a good person, doing, not cheating, and you listed a bunch of attributes of what we would consider good people. I would agree with those
Mhm.
attributes. The stark difference I would have, at least from the perspective of the Bible, is that there are no good people. And I think a lot of people, and you kind of mentioned the Old Testament especially, a lot of the stuff I struggled with when I was previously an atheist was believing like, there's passages in the Old Testament that talks about when the Israelites are moving into the promised land where God's like, kill all these people, don't leave any survivors, take out the women and the children too, leave nothing, and then take your plunder. In certain scenarios, he allowed them to plunder it as well.
Mhm.
And a lot of the questions I would have were like, well, what if women and children? What do you mean? Aren't these good people? Like, aren't these like, isn't that cruel? And where my view started to change was recognizing that there are no good people. I look at the times where I was leading my own life, and believing in myself, and I always ended up in the wrong spot. Anytime I was relying on my own understanding, my own philosophies, my own willpower, it may have started good and it may have been good for a while, even like a few years, but it always digressed into chaos in one way or another. So my view started to change when I started to recognize that all good things that people do, religious or not, are a byproduct of the Holy Spirit working through them. They don't even have to be believers in Jesus Christ for that to be, the scenario uh for him to work through them, because we're all made in the image of God, bearing the same consciousness, and you know being like a mind like God is, because he's beyond humanity. Obviously we say he, Father, but the Trinitarian God is what we believe in. And there's no way a human mind can fathom that. Many other religions try, but because you can't fathom it, because we're all made in the image of God, we all at times display his attributes, which would be the good things that we do. Outside of him working through us, we can do no good. Um, so I don't think that's the reason I don't think any good people, quote unquote, go to heaven, and good things don't aren't the reason you would go into an afterlife, is because they just don't exist. The only good person that ever lived was Jesus, and we killed him. So that's the way I view it.
So, and I'm trying to understand your views here,
Yeah, absolutely.
not trying to argue. So, it you don't think that so you think that nobody is good, that we've established.
Yeah.
But you're also saying that even if nobody's good, not only that, but you can't even do something that's good. If something that's good happens, that's the Holy Spirit acting through you. Is that kind of
I would say that's an accurate assessment. Yes.
okay? I mean, yeah, I mean that's where we're just gonna like have like a big disagreement. I mean,
Yeah. I
anything
figured
to
I
all of
figured as
that,
much.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and I also preface this with Ty, and I'll say it for everyone that's watching. Obviously we'll get into some like deep stuff here, like, and even if we get passionate, I'm sure I will. Like, me and Ty can go grab a beer after this. Like there's
Yeah.
all of this stuff is in an effort to understand why people think the way that they do. I'm not trying to do any gotchas or like, own you guys or anything
Yeah,
like that.
absolutely.
And just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that. But after that preface, for me, it seems like that would be a bleak world to live in where you're like humans, there's not a single human alive that's capable of any good. Do you
Hmm.
see what I'm saying? Like that seems sad,
Well,
you
I would
know?
ask what makes it bleak or what makes it sad from your view, unless you have another question you'd rather ask. And
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like humans should be capable of doing good things because they want to do good things. Like I think that's why I do good things, not because there's somebody acting through me or because there's some divine reward that might be waiting for me. It's just that, you know, I do good things because I think it's the right thing to do, you
Yeah.
know. And
I
it
think,
seems bleak that a world could exist where nobody can ever do anything from their own volition that would be deemed as good.
yeah. And I definitely see that. I think maybe this would be a better way of maybe explaining it potentially. Uh it's not as if actually no, I mean you explained it great. The other thing I would add to my explanation would be it's not necessarily I'm being controlled like a robot in order to do the good thing. It's the grace of God that allows me, because again, I do still believe in free will. I believe,
Yeah.
in we have the action and the ability to do right and wrong. I believe that the law of God is written in our hearts, so we all know intrinsically what good and bad is because of that. Otherwise, that's another reason I don't think morality is necessarily subjective. I believe it's objective. And you mentioned that in your opening statement as well. I would like to tap into that a little bit later. But I do think that it's important to note that it's the grace of God that allows people to possess, like you said, the volition to do good or bad, the option. Otherwise, without that, there's no way we'd be capable of doing such things. And I mean, that's kind of displayed throughout human history as well, especially when power is involved. Um, Even the person in the Bible who is deemed after God's own heart did some of the most wicked. For those who don't know, that's David in the Bible. You can find his story in a lot of the Kings and Second Samuel, I think is where David starts.
Hmm.
But he was called described as a man after God's own heart. Which there's a little bit more explanation. We could go into that as well if you care to. But he, you know, lusted after some dude's wife. He saw her bathing on a rooftop. He went and slept with her. So he seduced her, slept with her, got her pregnant, had her husband sent to the front lines of the war that they were in, had him killed, and then ended up marrying. Her name was Bathsheba. And after that, you know, I think it was his firstborn after that was, um, it died in birth, and then he ended up birthing Solomon, or Bathsheba did. But his story is the bulk of the reason I mention him is because he was someone after God's own heart. I believe the world pushes the uh, mantra to follow your heart, I feel like it's in everything. You remember going to preschools and you see a little monkey hanging, and it's like, be you. Like, I think that there's a lot of deception in that, even though it feels nice and looks nice and innocent on the surface. But I think a lot of the world that we live in, uh, even it was prophesied to be so, that it would just appear good, but it's not good. And because of that, we know that we should do good, and Paul talks about this in the New Testament, is we know we should do good, but we don't. And why do we do the things we don't want to do? And then we don't do the things we know we should do. And if anyone were to sit down and be, you know, dissecting enough to be like, wow, there are times if I were truly honest with myself where I want to do the good thing and I don't, because out of either whether it's pride or just having your back against the wall, or even at times feeling completely justified to do the thing that isn't necessarily the right thing to do. I feel like we've all been there, and me especially. So that's kind of just extra information I wanted to add in there. I don't know if you have any additional thoughts after me saying that.
No, I mean you summed it up well. I always I don't know who your viewers will be, but I always appreciate the Bible lessons. I'm not as well versed as some others may be. So that context, oh, it'll always at least help me, if nothing else. Also,
Okay.
see that you're a big Coke Zero guy.
Yeah. Caffeine free, baby.
See,
Yeah.
I'm not that far into it. I still got caffeine in this, but
Yeah.
man,
Yeah,
big.
that's my next thing I'm gonna cut out is soda. But working on energy drinks right now, and then soda's next.
See, and caffeine, not to get too off topic here, caffeine never like had a like wiring effect on me, so I never got addicted to like caffeine, but cutting out these Coke Zeros would be almost as hard as cutting out the Zins for me right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's up on the list.
Yeah, caffeine's definitely normalized in the sense it's so easily accessible and
Yeah,
things
you
like
don't
that.
even realize you're drinking half the
Exactly. It makes
time.
it harder.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
cutting out caffeine. I want that to go on the record. I'm just cutting out energy drinks and or I guess artificial caffeine, maybe. I don't know if that's technically a real thing. I haven't deep dived on the caffeine production, especially in America, but I know other things about our food production is shady. So
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's I have plenty of problems with what I deem as unchecked capitalism running
yeah.
rampant in our country that I would love to get into. But again, you're the host. I'll let you decide where we
Well, I mean, if you have any additional thoughts there, do you have any questions you want
Yeah, I got
to?
something, Ben.
Yeah.
And if I misquote you or anything, please correct me. Earlier you mentioned about like your own philosophies that you're progressive, and so you kind of mend your morals around your family and whatnot. Is that correct?
Yeah, I use I construct my philosophy on how I should live my life from I grasp from multiple branches. I don't
Sure.
go from one place. With my relationships, with, what I see, I basically, yeah, long story short, I pull from multiple areas to develop my worldview.
Yeah, definitely. And I understand that. And I think me having my background of being an atheist kind of has similarities to that where I can relate. Do you ever feel like with that and our constantly evolving world around us, does that ever get, do you ever get anxiety from that? Like if, do you ever feel like that's constantly shifting, especially maybe looking forward 5, 10 years, like what, where you could be in life like that?
Um, to start it off, I've got anxiety when I wake up in the morning.
No, I hear you. I hear you.
Anxiety is going to be whether it's sunshine and roses outside or what the anxiety is going to be here. But to be honest with you, man, as someone who is more progressive, like that excites me. It doesn't scare. I mean, maybe it scares me a little bit, but it's like the fear of doing something that's unknown and exciting.
Mhm.
Um, Again, I don't have a ton of confidence in like governmental structures. Like, I'm not saying that I would be excited for like our government to be doing a lot of flip-flopping. I'm more just talking about like people as a whole.
Mhm.
I mean, like, for example, we all love to talk about like what's woke, what's not woke, like et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we have made so much progress on like just accepting people and racism, and we still have a long way to go. But whereas you guys now are like, oh, this is getting a little too woke for me, like in 10 years, that's just going to be like Obama was the one that made gay marriage legal. And again, I'm sure this is a conversation that we can get into. I know there's some religious scrutiny there. Um, but like that's not that long ago, and it excites me as somebody who has empathy that wants people to feel loved and welcomed and have a home and a space in society, in our country, etc. The fact that things change and stuff updates and new ideas come forward, that's exciting to me.
Okay. Yeah.
I have a question based on something you just said as well. You mentioned government shifting that wouldn't be as comfortable, but it sounds like you're all for culture shift, and especially when it's to you in a more progressive uh, realm, I guess. I am of the understanding that culture influences government. I think a lot of people might argue the opposite, that government influences culture, but I'm kind of curious your perspective on that. Do you think that our culture and the way it's moving, because it sounds like, let me not even preface, let me just hear it from what you say.
Well, what way do you think it's moving?
In culture or government?
Yeah, like what it where like you're saying with the way that culture is moving, what's the way in your opinion?
Oh, I just mean you mentioned progressiveness and things like that. I guess my question in plain terms would be, do you think that culture is currently influencing our government, or would it be the opposite?
Um, I think culture has the capability to influence our government. I don't think that I don't think it's like a steadfast like it will or it won't. I think that it can. Um, I mean, there are, if you look at a chart, and I looked at this chart 8 months ago, so I'm not going to be exact on the numbers, but the popularity of a bill amongst the American people does not matter at all with it getting passed through Congress with the House. And so, like, again, it can, right? Like, I mean, I think LGBT rights are a good example. I mean, gay marriage has been legalized. There's been a lot of progress made on that front, but it also can not make a difference at all.
Yeah,
So I mean, if you're asking me, I hope that a progressive culture influences politics and makes our politics more progressive. I mean, I want to see more socialist programs in this country. I won't shy away from that. I think that we need to tax the rich more. I believe in free healthcare, free colleges, et cetera, et cetera. So I hope so. I hope that happens. But I don't think that if this country was majority me, left-leaning people, agnostic, etc., I don't think that that would necessarily mean that that's what it would look like represented in a government.
got you. Okay. Well, that makes sense. I guess you mentioned socialist, I guess things that you would want implemented. You mentioned healthcare and things like that. Uh, I don't want to get too technical into policies and things like that. I don't think that's necessarily my goal in the conversation, but I am curious at what things that you would deem socialist are things that you would see beneficial for the future of, I guess, culture in the general population in America and outside of it.
Yeah, so when I look at socialism, I look at like equality of opportunity. I look at the best possible outcome for the most amount of people. And the way that I believe the country is structured right now is it's set up for the 1%. That if you're rich here, America's the spot to be. It's the best place. You have everything lined up, tax breaks, safe havens, everything's protecting you. But for the most people, it's they can't afford health care. They live paycheck to paycheck. They're in credit card debt. Like even people that may appear to be doing well are struggling in this economy. And again, I'm not going to pretend to be a policymaker. I don't know exactly how these things are structured in Congress,
Yeah.
but I want to see the rich get taxed more. I want to see healthcare be free in this country. I want to see less spending on defense. And we can still spend the most in the world on defense and cut out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars from our defense budget.
Yeah.
And for me, like that's what I want to see. I don't really care, and this is a whole nother conversation we can get into. I don't care about bombing people in Iran or in Palestine. I actually want those things not to happen. What I care about is people not dying in Dallas, Texas because they can't get their diabetes medication. So all the policies that I support and kind of how I structure my political view is how can we see the best outcomes for the most amount of people?
Okay. I like that. I mean, I agree with the sentiment of a lot you're saying. I do think that making things that people genuinely need more accessible is a noble thing to do. The thing that I guess hangs me up on things like that, and specifically from your perspective, is you were talking about empathy for all people, and then in the next breath saying tax the rich more as opposed to equal opportunity for all people. To me, that feels like backwards, I guess, and maybe you can explain the nuance of that a little bit more to where I can understand why that's not a contradiction, maybe, or uh, I don't know, just more, I
Yeah.
guess, into that because I do think that the empathy part of it is the main thing I want to focus on out of all that policy stuff you just said.
Yeah, I think like a great way to look at it, right, is, and hopefully this translates, like, I'm not talking about actually equal, right? Like, if I tax Elon Musk 1% of his net worth and I tax me 1% of my net worth, it's going to hurt me a heck of a lot more than it hurts Elon Musk because my net worth is, I mean, not even crumbs compared to what his is.
Yeah.
So I'm not suggesting we make Elon Musk worth $10 million. Like he has billions and billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars. All I want is equality in the sense where they're also paying their fair share of taxes. I paid more in federal income taxes than like, I mean, you can insert big company name here, like Nike, Google, et cetera, et cetera. And these are companies that are worth trillions. And Ben Fein is paying more in federal income taxes than them, you know. So again, I'm not looking for straight up equality. Like, yes, I'm looking to tax the rich more, but what I'm trying to do by taxing the rich more in my mind is even the playing field, not make it to where it's harder to be a rich person than it is to be a poor person or a middle income person.
Yeah. I guess my last question to kind of bring it back to the core of what am looking for in this conversation. Do you think that the corporations, the government, and the people publicly influencing culture, like influencers and things like that, do you think that there's some sort of collusion among them all, not just American government, I would say all world governments in collusion working with one another in order to influence a particular agenda beyond uh, what they publicly speak about, like these policies and things, and drowning us in information and all of that. Do you think that there's any possibility that they're all working together to make everyone wake up with anxiety every day and just make us, completely so focused on things that are completely out of our control that we're just feeling hopeless and small and purposeless and in a world that if we were able to, like you said, have more readily available things for just day-to-day life, like if you need the medicine, having the medicine, like could they all be in collusion with one another in order to keep us in this spot? Does that make sense?
Um, yeah, I think short answer, in my opinion, no. I don't think the entire world is pushing narratives down our throats. I mean, I certainly think that like America is pushing certain things to Americans and like Canadians are pushing certain things to Canadians, you know, in Europe, they're pushing certain things to Europeans. Um, and even in smaller subsections, right? Like when there's local elections in DFW, like we get pushed like ads and, you know,
Yep.
so I think it exists on a micro level. Um, and the micro level still being big, obviously, but I don't think there's some like satanic, you know, cabal, like what Alex Jones is saying, you know, where they're, you know, drinking blood and deciding who the next world leaders are. I think that propaganda exists. We've seen that. I mean, you see it in Nazi Germany. You see it going on today in a lot of countries. But I don't think that, like, yeah, America is working with Russia, is working with China, is working with Europe to feed
Gotcha.
us. stuff. I think if there's one group of people that are trying to do that, it's billionaires.
Okay, that's interesting.
Do you think like with you being um speaking on being progressive and pushing for more equality in the country, which I don't disagree with. I think with that, what is the limit? Because with that comes a lot of government programs, a lot of government run things. So like what is the line there?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like there's no negatives there for me. Like the more our culture is diversified, the better. I think that like it's proven that the more diverse you are, the more ideas there are in a certain spot. I mean, that's why I like having these conversations is because if I was only sitting in a room full of socialists, I'd never learn anything new. If I'm sitting with people that I usually wouldn't have a conversation with, even though I might not agree with you, I might have a new way of approaching things, or I might look an idea in a different way. So for me, uh, one, government programs don't scare me. I think that they can be good, not bad, if done in the right way. Obviously, this isn't like my perfect worldview. Do I think that it could be achieved right now? No. But I'm all for government programs, and I'm all for as much like I'm cool with me being a minority. I'm a white man. I'm cool if there are more brown people, black people, more women than men. And I'm not saying that you guys aren't okay with that, but
Yeah.
that's just kind of like for me, there's like, it's like, yeah, like that would just be a thing that would be happening. It wouldn't be something that I'd think about really.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to pick up right there on part two. This has got 2 minutes left, so I'm just gonna go ahead and cut it now and jump on the next one, and then we can pick up right there. But keep a tab on that because I want to dive in a little bit into government, kind of like you said, programs and why I think that that might be an introduction to another stark difference between us and you. So
Yeah, no,
let me
now
just.
we're getting into this is the stuff I like.
Yeah, all right, all right.
Let me
And
pop
I want
another.
to see the paintings. I want to see your taste.
Let me see if I can. I don't even know how. Let's do it. I gotta be. There we go.
Oh,
All right.
nice.
Oh, there we
Oh,
go.
the pizza planet's fire.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
We were
dude.
just talking about Pizza
Yeah.
Planet the other day.
little pizza plant action. This is just like I think this was a famous painting. It's just like cartoonized.
I saw the
Uh,
Pitts jersey too.
yep,
Y'all
yep.
look
My
like y'all are
my
gonna have a good
king.
season potentially.
We hope so. My expectations for the Falcons are always in the dumpster. So
Oh,
anything that they do is not going to surprise me. They could go 0 and 18. They could go 18. I would not be surprised.
I think we're all kind of in that boat. We're just not surprised with
Yeah.
stuff. I
Hang
don't.
in there. I've been a Bears fan and it's
Oh,
finally happened here.
are you from Chicago or like originally or?
Growing up, I was just a Brian Urlacher fan, so I was like, okay,
Mm,
I'm gonna root for the
okay.
Bears.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a bunch of I went to school in Missouri, so I've been to Chicago a bunch and I have a bunch of friends that are from that area.
Yeah,
That's cool.
gotcha. I do like Chicago though. It's a
Yeah.
great city.
Yeah, it's a great city. And
Oh.
hey, perfect transition. Speaking of government-run programs,
I thought the same
Oh my
thing.
God. Seriously. I
hey,
I
hey,
I kind of just wanted to dive into the reason I would say, and this is where I think another fork in the road exists. I'm not a fan of government run programs. I think the original America, even, at least in its purest idea form,
Yeah.
was as laissez-faire with government as possible, keeping the hand out of the day-to-day life of everyday people. And the reason I say that is because I do believe that power corrupts always, eventually. I think that that's the powers in the hand of any man will eventually corrupt its beholder. And I mean, if you could think of a scenario where that isn't true, I'd like to hear it. But
yeah. I mean, I'd be curious to ask then, and like maybe this is just a broad question, like, uh, what do we do then? Like, are we just doomed no matter what? You know what I'm saying though? Like, if it's gonna end up bad no matter what, it's like, what do we? what do we do, you know?
Well, that's actually an excellent question.
We're probably on the same page with this.
And and I don't disagree with you necessarily. I think that like obviously every empire topples, right? Like stuff doesn't exist forever. And like I think we're seeing some of that with late stage capitalism right now. Like I'm
Mhm.
not anti-capitalist per se, but I'm anti-late stage capitalism, and I think that's what a lot of what's happening right now. Um, so like in my view, like I guess yeah, there's a probability that things could end poorly no matter what, but for me, I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, well, until then, like I'd rather everyone have free healthcare, like people be able to afford their basic necessities, so on and so forth. And then again, if that's a problem, like we can address that and it might happen, but like you you can get to fascist regimes from anywhere, right? So like if that's what we're worried about when we're talking about like implementing policies, then it's like we'll never be able to do anything, you know? So it's like I have to at least have some optimism, I guess, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you want to take the driver's seat on that or
Bro, you will vocalize it way better than I will, if I'm being honest.
uh I mean, I just think about from the grand scheme of things, kind of like you said, like what do we do?
Hmm.
I do think when if we're trying to be 100% realistic with everything, I'm 100% on board with what you're saying. Let's just give everyone free everything. Let's just, make it to
Yeah.
where we're all, matter of fact, while we're at it, let's just overthrow the government and, make it just run by the people where there's no oversight and we can just help each other as neighbor from neighbor. But the problem that I see is because there's no way to get government to run that without it inevitably corrupting or inevitably only, you want to talk about billionaires being the problem, wait until it's one dude who is just in charge of it all. And then it's like, we're back into communism or monarchism. Is that what it's called? Oligarchyism or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it
Yeah.
has an.
Fascist regimes,
Yeah,
monarchies,
exactly.
yeah,
So
there's
then
yeah.
then we're right back to square one and complaining about something completely different. So from my view, what do we do? I mean, it was prophesied. There's nothing we can do. And that's why I go back to scripture. That's why I go back to the Bible. You want to talk about, Revelation is all about, ha a third of the world being completely deceived. And that's the reason the Bible is the reason personally for me. I don't even know if you're united on this or not, but I'm not convinced that we're not living under the New World Order regime. And that's kind of why I asked you about collusion in governments. I think, and this is something I complain even to my wife about a lot, the world is just theatrical in the sense of everything is a performance. I
Yeah.
look at figures like Donald Trump or even people like Joe Biden, and they're characters, they're literal characters who are
Yeah, it's
acting
being
on
smart.
impulse. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And
it's people like people that they have somebody to root for, and most people just they go to the polls and they see the blue or the red and they pick whatever, and they're okay with whoever on their side doing whatever because that's their team.
yeah,
And it becomes very much like Roger Stone said this, who ran Trump's campaign in 2016, is that it's a lot easier to win an election by dividing people as opposed to uniting people.
absolutely.
And not that that Trump is the only one to do that. I think he was probably the best at that. But that's just what a lot of people do is they're like, hey, it's a lot easier to get people mad at somebody else than to get somebody to love somebody else. Um,
Absolutely.
so yeah, I agree with you there. I have a question, and
Hmm.
that is, I don't think you're necessarily like, obviously you're not purposely contradicting yourself, but like you like what America was founded on, the laissez-faire like approach, like just leave me alone, basically,
Yeah.
libertarian, if you will. And then you also say that the answer you think to stopping like, governmental overreach, just bad government getting to place is Christ. So I'm trying to understand how you like retcon those two things. Like, how do
Mhm.
you be super laid back, but then also theoretically, I know you're not going to push Christianity down my throat, but you're basically saying that in order to get to this point, everyone has to be this religion, or it has to be run by this religion.
Gotcha. That's a great question. Actually, that's a
That
fantastic
was.
question. And I can totally see where the confusion's stemming from. Because I would say the grand scheme of people would have a humanistic view of who Christ is.
Mhm.
But you work in video games, so let me use a video game metaphor. Let's just pretend we're all video game characters, right? And there's only one way to beat the game. And the developer of the game has watched, let's just say he gave these characters free will. So you live within the game and you can try to beat it on your own. There's only one way to beat it. Well, the developer has watched time and time again. He's literally spoken somehow into the video game characters, told them how to beat it, blah, 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 all that. And they still fail to do it. They fail to listen to the instruction of how it is to achieve that. And even in the beginning of the game, you could have beat it in one click. And instead, he said, don't do this thing. And we went and did that thing. And now the whole game is 10 times harder than it ever had to be. Um, but that all that game, he allowed all that to happen within the game for the developer himself to condescend into a video game form and come down into the game himself and give everyone the cheat code is
Hmm.
the way I would view it. So you asking that question from my view would be like, well, why can't the video game government run or I guess your question was more phrased like, why can't you view the video game government as people who could get things into order when you're viewing that one other video game character who came down, the developer, and why is that not the same principle of following just another person? If you want laissez-faire, why is he not laissez-faire too?
Yeah, because that's like my thing is like, and this isn't at you. My thing is
Yeah,
like stand on business, right?
yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
I'm one like I want big government, right? Like I'm not going to try to like weasel my way out of it. And
Yeah,
if that's what Christians want, if that's what you guys want, like I'm not again. I want big government, right? But I want my big government, and
gotcha.
I think that that's one of my issues with not to bring this back to politics, but with like Republicans is like they portray themselves as these one like the laissez-faire, like et cetera, et cetera. And it's like Trump's rounding people up on the streets, you know? And it's like if you want big government, that's cool. Like that, I'm cool with that. But let's not like just let's be honest with ourselves,
Yeah,
right?
you want them to
Yeah,
stay inconsistent.
yeah, have
Absolutely.
consistent views. Yeah, which, and again, if you guys think that the best way for our nation to succeed is people to have to go to like re-education camps to become Christians and born again, like obviously I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, but I'd be like, all right, yeah, that's what you guys think needs to happen, you know, that and again, not that I'm not putting I don't want to put words in your mouth,
Yeah.
but yeah.
No, you're good. I just to finish my initial thought so I can bring it all to understanding, like so we're on the same page. First of all, I just want to get the disclaimer out there. I think both sides of government are two wings of the same bird. I think if you're a hardcore Democrat or a hardcore Republican and you think one is worse than the other, I mean, you can drink out of the clean side of the toilet, but at the end of the day, it's still toilet water. That's the way I view it. So I don't think that government is our savior. I think American history has been very evident of that, and even world history, if you go back further than that. No person in power is your savior. Everyone feels a little bit safer when the person they wanted in power is in power, but nothing ever really, on the grand scheme of things, that is, nothing
Yeah.
ever really changes for the grand benefit of the citizens, of the everyday guy.
Yeah.
So my loyalty, my fealty is pledged, I would say, to Christ. And this is where I would say, how you asked, how is that different than pledging a fealty to a government? Well, government is run by man, operated by man, and my fealty is pledged to the creator of man. So something greater than anything we can even comprehend in our brain would be the only thing I think could ever possibly save us, because it's not just the creator of man, it's the creator of all things, all laws of logic, all laws of physics, all laws of anything you can possibly comprehend, mathematics, all of it, every language, every different appearance, all the races, all the rivers and valleys and everything. I don't want to ever find myself praising creation when you have the opportunity to praise the creator of the creation. Because otherwise it's I find it all empty. It's what was Solomon says it's all vanity in Ecclesiastes. And that's someone who had everything in the world you could possibly imagine. You want to talk about billionaires? This dude was the billionaire, and he had hundreds of wives, hundreds of concubines, maybe thousands. I don't remember the no name off the number off the top of my head, but this dude had everything you could ever imagine. And at the end of the day, in Ecclesiastes, it's a whole poetic book about how it all means zip zap zero. And so anything that is man-made, anything that's man-run will eventually corrupt. I have, my favorite pair of shoes when I was a kid is like dry rotted now. Like I thought I was like, I'm gonna wear this pair of shoes forever because I was finally at this. I haven't grown much since I was a child.
Yeah,
So
same here.
for
Same
anyone
here.
who's known me, like
Yeah.
I'm not very tall. So I was had the ability to, have the same thing, but my focus was in a worldly thing. And if your focus is on worldly things, you'll always be let down. So instead of looking to the creation, I like to look to the creator. And that's why I don't view it as a contradiction. And maybe you'd have more questions you want to ask after this. Uh, or maybe you have something you want to say in addition to this. But I just don't view it in the same way because government is never going to be your savior. So that's why I view laissez-faire as the best, way to go. And
Yeah, and within that like laissez-faire approach, like let's just say like both of your guys' perfect world, and this again, it's not trying to be a gotcha. I'm
oh, you're
curious.
good.
Would would you want every single person that exists in America to be like saved by Christ, like Christian, like the obviously there's no good people in your worldview, like
Yeah.
as close as you can get to like, oh, this person's a godly person, Christian, following God, the word of the Bible, etc.
Well, it depends on what you mean. Do I think I would want that for people? Absolutely, without a doubt. Do I think we should force people into that? Absolutely not.
Okay, do you think maybe not forced, but do you think it should be like that?
Well, I guess that would kind of
I
qualify.
think I
You
think
just,
God intended it to be like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and again, it wasn't intended to be a gotcha. It's more to like maybe help you guys understand my point of view. Like, it's like one of my big turnoffs, like with religion in general, is like that to me and like who I am as a person, that feels very exclusionatory, like I'm being excluded based on what I believe or don't believe. And again, I'm not saying these are your views,
No,
but
you're
like
good.
I want everyone to exist in this country, right? Muslims, atheists, Christians, et cetera, et cetera. And I understand your viewpoint where you're like, guys, we have the answers. Like, you just have to do this, and like, it's all going to be good. But on a human level, it feels. I tell a story, and apologies if my dad didn't want me name dropping him. But you actually interviewed my dad, I think, Ty,
Yeah.
right? Back in high school.
Hmm.
My dad was on the news for a lot longer than I was, 30 plus years. He's a great guy, kind. He grew up Jewish. He's not very religious now. And he gets asked to MC to host a lot of events, not as much anymore, but he hosted one for when the mayor of Prosper, where I and Ty lived, when he was retiring. And a lot of the programs, what people were talking about was how they're so happy that the mayor brought God back into Prosper and, all these great things. And my dad told me that he felt so incredibly alone in that room and that they had invited him to host and that they, obviously saw him of at least some value, but he felt worthless in that moment because to him it's like there's no place for me here. And I understand that the Christian's point of view is like, hey, we're trying to help you as well. Like we want the best for you, the same way that I want the best for people, but people might not agree. But I guess, yeah, just understanding it from my end is that sometimes I guess we feel as though you want to make a place where we would have no home in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean that definitely makes sense. Do you want to tap into that a bit?
I think too that I can kind of speak on that just from like my atheist background. So when I briefly touched on my marriage before. So I married a Christian. Her father was actually a pastor. So that made for a very interesting dynamic from the jump. Um, I think he definitely didn't want us to get married from the get-go, but he never vocalized that to me, but he definitely made it clear of like, hey, you're you got a long fight ahead of you before
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or I just let you into the family. And so, I mean, and I felt all those things. I felt all the same things. I was like, oh, well, just because I'm not a Christian, like I can't be here, like I can't be loved, I can't be accepted by you guys. And I felt that. And there were definitely times where like me and my ex-wife, our beliefs are completely different. So we would have these conversations on morals and things like that that are just completely different.
Mhm.
And so I definitely used to feel that. I don't know if like I have a roundabout answer for that. I think a part of it is my belief in sin that separates us from God. Like, and I know a lot of times well, first of all, I think a lot of times people have the word sin defined wrong. And so, but when we talk about sin as is described in the Bible, I think a lot of those things that separate us from God are what separate us from each other as well. Because I do believe that we are all created from the same God and to be unified as one. Um, so, I mean, I don't know if that necessarily answers. I don't think you really had a question. It was just kind of speaking on your father feeling excluded.
I also have an additional thought to go along with what you're saying. Um, in addition to everything he just said, I do believe, um, just plainly that truth in its nature is exclusive. There's a right and a wrong answer. Especially like if again, let's take it back to mathematics. If there's an equation, there's an answer that's right, and then there's a bunch of others that they may be close, they may be, pretty accurate, but they're not true for the actual answer. There's only one real answer. So it is inherently exclusive. But the difference in the way I kind of want to encourage anyone listening to this to look into it is it's open exclusivity.
Mhm.
So it really is a club anyone can join. It's not exclusive in the sense of you have to do XYZ to be qualified. There's really no qualifications. Again, this kind of boils back to the no good people. Like we're just two dudes who've messed up in every aspect of life you can probably imagine. And for some reason, our eyes were open to the truth. And whenever that happened, that was no power even to us to join the club. It was just like, oh, they do know what they're talking about. And by they, I mean the people who are inspired by the Holy Spirit to write the Bible. I mean, this is 2,000 years, or maybe it's 4,000 years 66 books, 40 plus authors, multiple different continents, and they're all telling one unified story with absolutely zero contradictions. Now, there are different complementaries, especially with the Gospels, because a lot of people aren't fully read in the Bible will say, well, the Gospel says this and the Gospel says that, or this one says it a little bit differently than this was, but they're all telling the same bulk of the story, the same principles. In any historical document, I mean, that anyone would count as true history, they'll find, little nuanced differences within documentations of it because they're coming one from different perspectives. Some are eyewitness accounts and some are not. And then on top of that, there's just, different elements and different goals within each writer. But they're all telling the same story.
And I also I'll preface it with this too. I don't want my comments to come off as I wouldn't dissuade anyone from finding religion. I think that it can be super helpful for a lot of people. That's why I dislike, for me at least, like I wouldn't describe myself as atheist, more agnostic, just not knowing. Um, I, my brother is religious now. He started going to church. It's been great for him. I think can be great for a lot of people. Where the crossroads happen is where, and again, not saying that you guys specifically are doing this, just
Good.
evangelical Christians try to push that worldview onto people that might not want that worldview. So, like, for example, practicality reasons, right? Like you guys are sitting here and you have all the conviction in the world that like this that I'm showing you is the truth, right? And I don't doubt any of that. But I also could do this same sort of podcast with two Jewish guys, right? That the same thing. They're like this right here, this is the truth, this is the way.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like real world application and like legislation, because this is like obviously everything comes back down to how it's going to impact the real world.
Mhm.
Like this is an easy one because I know it and I know it's tough, but like for example, Christians believe that life begins at conception.
Yeah.
Jewish people believe that life begins at first breath.
Mhm.
So that's why the majority of Jewish people are pro-abortion. So like in a legislative capacity, how do you uh, come to an agreement on two people that are saying we're right, God told me?
Um, I think evidence would be the first thing, because anyone can have a faith. I kind of want to boil it back down to that. A Jewish person could have an even stronger faith than I do. A Muslim could have an even stronger faith that I could, an observable faith that is to where they're practicing more, they're doing X, Y, and Z that would qualify them more. But the difference is, uh, they're all faith isn't what makes something true. It's uh it's the object of your faith. So for me as a Christian, I believe that anyone can have a faith in anything. Does it make it true? No. You have to
Have
look at
faith
the
in the
evidence.
Atlanta Falcons. You see where that's got me, right? Like, it's
Right? So
nowhere.
I think in the terms of I guess your question being, how does that work? How do you have two people saying, God told me, God told me? I think that there's evidence, that points to one being, I would say, more right than the other. I mean, even the Jewish, religion as it stands, Judaism today,
They
um,
believe in the same God. Correct me if I'm wrong, right?
Seeing
Jewish
God
people.
is interesting, I would say, because I believe Jesus to be the
Yeah,
condescended form of
that's
God.
my understanding is the biggest discrepancy between Jewish people and Christian people is Jewish people believe that Jesus was a person, but that he was just a person and not the second coming of God. And
Exactly.
Christians that he's the second coming of God. But as far as the first coming of God, my understanding is that they're basically in agreement there, that they have the same original God.
Yeah, so
Maybe
the,
if
the
I'm wrong.
Old Testament and the Torah, which is what, Um, I would say they have additional books too, but the Torah is the first, I believe, five books of the Bible. And so yeah, obviously unified on that front, and but there's an exclusivity factor in the sense of Jesus came to fulfill the law that is found in the Torah. I mean, the Pharisees, which were Jesus's, in modern terms, biggest ops, uh, in the New Testament, especially in the gospel accounts, and even for the apostles after that, and you can find those documented in Acts of the Apostles. You're going to find that the Pharisees, which were these Jewish, um, what is it?
Priest.
Priests, yeah, basically. Um, they were in opposition of them too, because here's the difference. What Jesus came down to show all people was there was a sense of tradition and of, I would call it toxic exclusivism,
Mm.
to the point of where they thought their own efforts gave them the ability to be more holy than another person. I look at you and I say, I'm not more holy than you, Ben. There's no way. I know the things I do in the dark, in the secret, and I know the things that I've done in my life that have not necessarily been a reflection of my current state. And definitely not a reflection of the holy Jesus Christ. So you look at things like that and you're like, okay, well, what's the difference then? Well, Jewish people believe inherently that your good deeds earn you salvation. Islam believes the same thing, that living by the book of the Quran earns you salvation. Many other religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, they all have a sense of do good things and you will be rewarded.
Hmm.
Christianity, from the book, the Holy Bible, is the only one telling you, and this is, some even professing Christians might disagree. But that's why there's some discrepancies even within, the Christian, but I would say Bible believing Christians at their core believe there's nothing I can do to be saved. All of my works are worth dog crap, like completely. And anything I try to do to earn anything is worthless. Everything was earned by the one sacrifice of Christ.
And
Um,
so you guys believe, and sorry, I'm not trying, I'm just trying to understand. You
yeah,
guys believe that the way to get into heaven is by saying that Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior. Am I right, wrong in that assumption?
By believing it.
believing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
believe.
a true belief bears fruit.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
I could say, I believe if I jump off this building, I will fly. But
Hmm.
unless I believe it enough to actually jump off, I don't really believe it. So a lot of people will claim to be Bible believing Christians, but when push comes to shove, they don't believe it.
Yeah.
They just know that that's the right thing to say, or their family believes that. And that's like me. I was raised in a Christian household. I would not consider myself Christian at all when it came push comes to shove until I was 24 years old. Uh, because even after that, my parents ended up getting divorced in 2016, and my life turned into straight atheism, into not even just straight atheism, a direct hatred towards God, which again, I feel like is the same principle of any type of power. Once power was in my hands and outside of my parents' workings for my own life, it immediately corrupted. And I was just doing everything that gave me instant gratification, that gave me feeling like good feelings. And at every single night and every single morning, as soon as I'm alone, I was left with this giant void that still wasn't filled, no matter what I was trying to fill it with. And I believe that the only thing that can fill that void is Jesus Christ. And that's the reason I believe that there's a difference between being a Bible believing Christian and believing anything else. I do believe that there's a lot of accurate information in others religions. I don't think that Muhammad was lying when he said that he was talked to by an angel of light. I don't believe that Joseph Smith was lying when he said he was talked to by an angel or by Jesus. I believe that the accounts, I do believe that they are telling true information in a lot of cases. I believe that Hindus worship little g gods. The difference is, I think, unless you're worshiping Jesus Christ of the Bible, then you're worshiping a demon masked as another god.
And that translates us really well because if you guys will have some grace with me, this brings up my biggest turnoff from Christianity specifically, if I could share that with you guys.
Absolutely.
So I'll use my dad again as an example because obviously, I don't think he's perfect. Nobody's perfect, but he's a great guy, right? He's been involved in his community, still married. He has 4 kids that he's raised to be great people, et cetera, et cetera. Um, in Bible believing Christians' opinions, he is going to hell. And then you have people like, and this is an extreme example, but I use it because it's extreme, right? Um, Jeffrey Dahmer, the guy that ate people. He became a born again Christian when he was in prison before he died. And for me, sitting here and thinking that this religion thinks that Jeffrey Dahmer goes to heaven and my father goes to hell, that is the big thing that I wouldn't be able to get past it, basically.
I gotcha. I think that there's a few things I just want to point out first. First of all, no one could really know if Jeffrey Dahmer became a born again Christian. Like
Yeah,
there's
let's
just
say for the
let's
sake of the
for the
story, let's
sake
say
of the
he
argument,
actually
let's say it's
was.
true though. Let's say it's
Yes.
true for the
Yeah.
sake of this conversation. So let's say that that is the case. Why would your dad, who is on the surface a good person, versus this dude who freaking ate people and was a serial killer, why would he get, the pass? Well,
I'll add sorry, I'll add one more to that.
yeah.
I if there's an afterlife, a heaven that Jeffrey Dahmer is in, I don't think that's a place where I would want to be personally. But anyways, I'll give the floor back to you.
Yeah, I mean, and from your view, I totally get it. I mean, how could you not think that? That would be like kind of weird if you didn't think the way that you're currently thinking, if you ask me. So the ultimate thing I would say is your view of, like he said, sin and what it is, that's where a lot of people would get caught up in human comparison. So like to you, cheating in a card game and cheating on your wife, one is worse than the other.
Hmm.
Cheating in a card game and killing somebody is definitely a huge difference. From the perspective of God, though, they're both in opposition of him.
Hmm.
So
For sure.
let's say, for example, Jeffrey Dahmer really did come to Christ at the end of his life. One finally admitted everything I ever did was wrong and I am no good. I see now that I am a terrible person. I'm a weak person. And my whole life I thought I was strong. My whole life I thought I had it together. And I see now that I was terribly and horribly wrong. God, humbly accept me into your kingdom because without you, I'm nothing. And then you have someone, let's just say, I don't know if your dad views this, but for example, because you brought him up, let's use your dad. You have someone going up, and let's say he passes away, and he's being asked if he's going to get into heaven. He's like, well, I did this good thing. I did this good thing. I'm a strong person. I did everything by the book. I messed up sometimes, but on the grand scheme of things, I never killed anybody. I never did this. I never did that. I never did that. There's two different mindsets here. One is thinking in a humanistic phrase, in this case, your dad would be thinking, I did good things, therefore I am good. And the
Hmm.
other is thinking, I did bad things and good things, but I know no matter what, I'm bad. And
Hmm.
I can only be good through your grace that allows me to be good. By Hebrews 10:14 says, for by one offering he had perfected forever them that are sanctified. So we are all made holy by the one offering of Christ. And Hebrews 10:10 ends with once and for all. So now and forever, we are all made holy through that lens. The difference is, and this is kind of goes back to the beginning of our conversation. That's why, from our worldview, there can be no good people outside of Christ. Because if anyone goes to the throne of God saying, I was good, then they're already disqualifying themselves because they think their efforts have any sort of qualifications when they don't. All our works are nothing. Now, and that's why I bring back the true belief part
Hmm.
because, and this is why I brought up, I don't know, you can't really know that Jeffrey Dahmer was a born again Christian
Yeah,
in his
yeah,
life because there was no time for fruits to be bared.
yeah.
Um, and because of that, fruits are how you know true faith. They're how you know true belief. That's what a fruit would be me jumping off the building because I believe I'm gonna fly. That's the
Mm.
fruit.
Yeah.
And there are certain fruits that Christians, real Bible believing Christians, Jesus Christ believing Christians display that anyone who just has, trying to save face saying they do love God won't display. So does that answer your question at all, at least
Yeah,
from
no, it answers my question. And again, I think obviously there are going to be some impasses here, right? Where it's just like our worldviews aren't going to be able to mesh.
okay.
I guess like the follow-up that I would have, like based off my curiosity, is that again, let's say that Jeffrey Dahmer was a true believer for the sake of the argument here,
Yep.
right? Um, if God can forgive that person, why couldn't God forgive a person like my dad? Who again, like I'm not saying that that anyone's all good. I agree with like that the sins are equal, right? Like you either sin or you don't, and everyone sins, right? I get that. But if you're able as a God to forgive someone for doing, I mean, just these atrocious things, right?
Hmm.
Then I don't see how, if you're an all-knowing, all-loving, out, all-powerful God, how you can look at somebody else who, again, not saying they're better or worse for the sake of the argument, but they're like, hey, this person, he did bad too. He wasn't able to come to the light and see. Um, but we can forgive that. Like one of my friends, and I won't name drop him, who's religious, says that he thinks that when I die, that I will have an opportunity to meet Jesus and profess, my love and accept him. And for me, if I die and I get blasted up there and I'm talking to the dude, that yes, that's I will be a Christian. If I get up there and I'm talking to the Christian God, and obviously that's easy to say, right, when you're faced with that. Um, but yeah, and I could get behind that a lot more, basically, is what I'm saying, as opposed to the eternal damnation because I mean, you can get even more extreme with it. There are children who die before they're able to hear the word of God, right? And it's like I would hope that those people don't go to hell.
Yeah. Hold that thought. We got to start the next one because it's about to end on me right now. But let's pick up right there at this
Yeah,
next.
yeah.